Hey guys, I'm recording from my new apartment where I finally gotten settled in this week. I moved in January 1st, so it was a very important day for me for a lot of reasons. And now I finally got my stuff all organized and I'm ready to start doing art again. And my first big project of the year has been using this dark toned paper. So a while ago I received some white pens from Micron and I was really excited to try them out. And basically what I've been doing is developing a negative shading technique, which a lot of people do, but I've never worked with it before. It's like maybe you've used a scratch board or maybe you've done linoleum cut prints, so you're actually putting on the highlights instead of just putting on the shadows and leaving the highlights. And that's been tricky, but I think I'm starting to figure it out. So I did a video to compare the two techniques, to compare doing a three-tone drawing on white paper and a three-tone drawing on dark paper. And what that means is that on the dark paper I'm using a white pen and I'm also using a black pen, so then the paper itself becomes the mid-tone. And on the light paper I'm just using a really dark pen and then a medium light pen. Wow, this light is crazy in my room. The sun is just setting in my eyes. It's really beautiful. But I hope you guys enjoy it. I chose a fun subject matter, some spicy peppers. And maybe this will get you started on your own journey of trying out different pens and seeing what they do for your technique. Now, before we get into the actual drawing, let's start off with one of these handy tone charts. Because we're using two different shades of paper, we're going to be using white paper and gray paper, the tone charts will be different. So starting with the white one, the paper is of course the highlight, and then we have a slightly lighter tone, and then I'm actually using a darker pen for the darkest areas. And that last box is just completely black, so I'm filling it in as much as possible. Now moving on to the gray paper, here's where it gets interesting. I'm using the white for the highlight and I'm using the black for the low lights, but that midtone is just the paper because the gray is already there. So I'm going to do my best to leave some of that poking through and let that part of the paper speak for itself. Now I'm doing a pencil outline of both of these. I've chosen two different peppers facing two different ways. Now these might look similar as outlines, but you'll really see the difference when I start coming in with this white pen. I'm just putting in the highlights now, and then I'm putting in the low lights actually on the right, because those are the things that I'm most sure of at the beginning. It's easiest to see the lightest points and the darkest points, and everything else you'll figure out as you go. Now I'm putting in the darkest areas of the one on the left, and keeping it light before I figure it all out. No outline or anything like that. Still pretty hesitant at this point, but just beginning to build up the form. And I'm using my lighter pen for the one on the right and putting in those midtones. Now I'm starting to see what the pepper might look like, so I am confident enough to put in that outline without messing it up or severely altering the shape. This is always a satisfying point because it starts to look like an ink drawing, not just a sketchy mess. Without the pencil, I can start to put in what feel like finishing touches, even though I'm not done with the drawing yet, but these are more detailed things than I've been putting in so far. I'm lightening those lights, and then on the right, I'm darkening those darks. Because for the lighter paper, it's those darks that are going to make the drawing pop, and then for the darker paper, it's those highlights that will make the drawing pop. So I want to make sure that each paper has a lot of contrast. Now that I'm happy with the foundation of the lights and darks, I'm just coming in with detail and refining it, looking back at my reference photo constantly, and adding in more darks because I'm sure of where those highlights are. There's nothing too methodical about this last part because it's all done by eye. You've put in the foundation of the drawing, you've done the darks and lights, and now you're just refining it so that it really looks like what you set out to create. And that involves bouncing around a lot. You will notice that I am trying to keep consistent with just two directions of cross-hatching, just vertical and horizontal. I am following that form subtly, but I don't have any diagonal lines because there's a lot going on already with the different pens, so I don't want to overcomplicate things. Finally, we've got two very different drawings of two very similar subjects. I think it's really interesting how they came out, and it was definitely not what I was expecting. And as I've said before, I'm still learning this whole dark paper technique, so hopefully I'll get more comfortable with it over time.